It's time for another edition of the Improbability Engine. I'm Will Aubrey. I'm joined by my buddy Joe Darnell here. And Joe, we start as always with our moment of what?
Yeah, and mine comes from the world of college football, and it's actually really close to home. Our Murray State University Racers, I think I can call you well, you're kind of a fan. You're more of media than I am. I'm a fan. I don't have any professional restraints on this one. You at least try to remain objective and look at things from a bigger picture. But
Sure I do.
my Murray State University Racers, played down at UT Martin. UT Martin's top 25 team. They just come off a loss to Austin Peay, but we're still one of the better teams in FCS football. Really high caliber team. It's homecoming in Martin, and who do they have coming in there? The Murray State Racers, a team that, quite frankly, has hit some hard notes this season so far. Not really played great at times. Other times played well on one half of the ball and wasn't able to do anything on the other side, and haven't put it all together. And we kind of knew it was going to be a rebuilding season for the Racers going into this. But the Racers apparently didn't get the memo. They went down to Martin and beat UT Martin for the first time in the better part of a decade at Martin's homecoming and beat them 13-10. I saw that, and I was so excited about that. It was a moment of what? I was so happy about it.
It was a great moment. And my moment of what comes from that game as well.
Really? What do you got?
Gabriel Vicente, the kicker that kicked the field goal as time expired to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
The first football game he ever played in was the game against Kentucky Wesleyan earlier this year.
This is a guy who had never played football before.
No, and knew nothing about the game.
Right.
They had to tell him what an onside kick was and what it was for.
Right.
And so the first time they had him practice an onside kick, after explaining it to him, he kicks it hard out of bounds 15 yards down the field and says, "Was that what you were going for?" And they're, no.
Parts of it were okay. The overall was not great.
His first practice, they didn't notice till later, he was kicking off from the 30. And in college football, you kick off from the 35. So it was a real learning curve for them to just teach him just a little bit about the game.
Right.
He had played soccer before.
Right. Played
soccer at Oglethorpe Division III,
right.
And then in high school, but didn't know anything about football.
Yeah, and he brings to mind another kicker in Rob Hart. I don't know if you remember Rob Hart from the mid-'90s. Rob Hart was an Englishman and came in as a kicker. Now, his claim to fame was that he was a barefoot kicker. Here's a guy, 5'9", 100 and nothing pounds, playing football. Okay, he's a kicker. Trots out onto the turf with one shoe on and one shoe off in 28-degree weather, and then proceeds to boom kickoffs into the back of the end zone. What a fantastic story that was. Really, and a good guy. I mean, I actually got his autograph when I was a kid and talked to him for a little bit. It was just an awesome situation. But
now, he played while Denver Johnson was the head coach, correct?
I want to say he started his first year kicking at Murray State was Houston Nuts last year, and then he played with Denver Johnson the next year.
Denver Johnson had a good story about a kicker. Denver had a lot of great stories.
Absolutely.
But Denver had played for the Houston Gamblers in the United States Football League, the USFL, which Denver called the Useful League. And so, anyway, he was playing for the Houston Gamblers, and Tony Fritsch was the field goal kicker.
Okay.
And he was German. Anyway, so Fritsch comes out to kick a field goal, and he's smoking a cigarette. And they snap the ball. He flicks the cigarette to the side, kicks the field goal. And so when he goes to the sideline, the coach chews him out and says, "Don't ever do that again." And Fritsch just looks at him and says, "F you," and walks off.
Yeah, the USFL might have had trouble on some levels for some of that stuff, but it's been a good weekend of sports, good week since we've had it. What are some of the things that you're thinking about going into this week?
Well, Murray State football, the Racers are on a bit of a roll after the victory over UT Martin, and that was huge because Martin's dominated that series over the last 12 years.
Absolutely.
And they get a chance this week to go to 2-1 in the OVC as they host Eastern Illinois. Now, that's a huge game. The Racers are a 7-point underdog to Eastern Illinois. And, you look at it and you think, wow, that's
actually respectable.
Yeah.
To be on the road.
But when you look at who Eastern Illinois has beaten, those teams aren't very good.
Yeah, and Kim Dameron, the coach at EIU, has taken over a program that was kind of in some flux, to be really honest with you. They'd come off some really high highs, the Jimmy Garoppolo EIU years, and they haven't really found their footing since that time. They've kind of been overtaken by JSU as the predominant football program in the conference the past few years. I still look at that team and I can't figure out what exactly they do great.
Well, I was talking to somebody who follows OVC football the other day, and he's like really connected. Mm-hmm. And he told me he thought that Eastern Illinois was in the process of falling toward the bottom of the league.
Really? Now that wouldn't surprise me. And quite frankly, with all the troubles that have beset the public schools, the public colleges in Illinois in the past few years, I guess I shouldn't be shocked by that. EIU and SIU have had, and I don't know about Western Illinois, but they've had moderate to severe budget problems. They've had problems
They've even
with
talked
enrollment.
about closing both schools.
Absolutely, which is incredible whenever you think about it. Now, EIU is not nearly the size of SIU. SIU is 26,000 or so students. It's a big school, all told. But that being said, it takes money.
It does.
And if you're not getting money, everything else doesn't matter.
7-point underdogs to Eastern Illinois. I think it's a game they can win, and I'm anxious to see what they come out and how they play.
Absolutely, and I like to see the fight in the Racer team. That's what you want to see. You want to build on that. Last year you saw it in bursts. There were some games where the Racers played really, really well. They did. They didn't have. I don't think that their defense was deep enough for what they did on the offensive side. So it's one of those where they were a little lopsided. It was difficult for them to win a lot of games, but they played with heart. This was the first time you've seen that on the defensive side, that the defense has really stood strong and was able to put some stops up and to do it consistently against a pretty good team. It's impressive. You got to tip your hat to those guys.
Callaway County plays at Hopkinsville, and
Tough
Hopkinsville's a huge favorite in that football game.
Yep.
Things have not been going well for Callaway, and really the game last Friday night was not even really a game.
Right. Well, and we had talked about it a little bit off air at different times. That game had all the makings of being a really bad game for the Lakers.
Pikeville was a 42-point favorite, and they jumped out to, I think, a 42-6 lead or 42-7, something like that.
Yeah.
And then nobody scored in the second half of the football game.
Yeah.
But it was 42-6 at halftime.
Yeah.
Clearly, if Pikeville had wanted to, they could have made it much worse.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, this Laker team has got some issues that they're dealing with, and this is what happens. Football, especially at the high school level, is extremely cyclical. Now, there are programs that can get away with it and not be cyclical, or as not be as a high beta as what other teams are. But you saw last year the Lakers were able to win some games and do some things and be dangerous at different points. They lost a lot of guys off that team. They've had some injuries this year that have put them behind the 8 ball. It's just kind of how these things work. But I tip my cap to to Laker fans. The Laker faithful still come out in droves, still support the team, cheering them on and give them their support, which is always what you need to see.
Jacob Bella played last week, although primarily on the defensive side of the ball. But it's good to see him getting healthy again.
Agreed.
Jacob's an outstanding player. And if they can get everybody healthy and they can get the kids to where they believe again, I think they're a little beaten down right now.
Yeah.
If they can get them to where they believe again, then who knows?
Well, and they have talent. Now, the talent is young. The talent isn't super deep. And you talk about Jacob Bella. Jacob Bella is extremely valuable offensively, but I don't think you can understate the desperate need for Jacob Bella on the defensive side.
That's true.
I mean, and that's just how that works.
They have other quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
If need be. John Foster, he throws a very nice ball.
He does. And
Zach Orange is capable too.
Absolutely. Both of those guys really impressed me watching them play. Of course, we had seen Foster a little bit before, but seeing him and Orange, I mean, those are two guys who they can sling the ball.
What's Murray High up to this week?
Well, Murray High has they've had a struggle so far this year. They're 2-5, but they're going into a get-right game after a lopsided loss against Mayfield, where the score is not even indicative of really what the situation was. They lost to Mayfield 56-21, and it wasn't even that close. But they've got Webster County this week. Webster County, a team that has struggles on the football side. They are 1-6. Their sole win, a 35-6 win over Fulton City, which we both know that's a.
Did they play Hopkins Central?
They did. They lost 61-6 to Hopkins Central.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
this should be an easy Murray High victory.
Yeah, one would think that. This is a chance for Murray High to get right, get healthy, get some reps for some guys, and as they get ready to finish out their season with Ballard Memorial and Union County, they have a chance to really kind of set themselves back up and get to playing some winning football before the playoffs start. I look for them to win that game, walking away with guys to spare, don't get anybody hurt, play some freshmen at the end, kind of stuff like that.
What's up next?
Well, depends on where you want to go. We could talk about soccer, which I don't want to, and for a change, you kind of do.
I'm just saying.
For anybody who doesn't know, the United States failed to qualify for the World Cup for the first time since 1986 on a loss last night at Trinidad and Tobago. In less than ideal conditions, but that doesn't really matter because you should be able to beat Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, a friend of mine, Maureen Manelli.
Yes.
Her husband used to be the soccer coach at Murray State. She was all into the game last night and watching, and she had been wanting to go to Russia for the World Cup.
Absolutely.
And watch the United States team play. And she said that they just threw the game away last night.
Yeah, it was an uninspired performance. An own goal in the first half gave Trinidad and Tobago the lead, and then later on a great shot by the TNT striker gave them a 2-goal lead. The wonder kid Christian Pulisic for the U.S. was able to bring 1 goal back, but unable to equalize. And you know what? It's sports are often about opportunities. When you miss opportunities, they don't often come back around, and that was a bright, shining example of missed opportunities last night for the U.S. men's national team. And quite frankly, what are you going to do? I mean, it is what it is. I know that you don't care about the world's game, but a disappointing result for American soccer there. In high school soccer, the Callaway County boys beat Murray High's boys 4-0. To book a chance ticket into the district finals against either Graves County or Marshall County. Really a great game. The first half, The Lakers had a 1-0 lead at around halftime. The skies opened up and a deluge ensued, and there was a delay. And finally, when they got back onto the field, the playing conditions were imperfect. We'll say they were imperfect. They were tough. It was a really difficult situation, but they were able to add on a couple goals as Murray High was trying to stretch back into the game and left themselves open for counterattack. And the Lakers were able to take advantage. And quite frankly, I think they're the favorites going into the district championship game against either Graves or Marshall. Those two teams, they just don't stack up with the Lakers at this point.
Today is International Day of the Girl, and it reminds me of the kerfuffle that we had with Cam Newton here a week or two ago.
Absolutely.
Where, referring to a female reporter who had asked him a question about the physical routes that his receivers were running and whether that helped him.
Right.
He kind of laughed at the notion that a woman would be talking about routes.
Even though he's in a room full of sports reporters.
Right. Now, ESPN gave him some heat for that.
Yep.
However, I would say this about ESPN. They should try to pull the mote out of their own eye. I really enjoy the E60 series, the 30 for 30 series, the Sports Century series, but virtually none of their documentaries have anything to do with female athletes. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, what about Monica Seles? That would be a great story. Or what about Mary Decker? I mean, there are all kinds of female athletes who have achieved greatness that they could do stories about.
Absolutely.
But they never, ever do. And one of the few times that they do, if they pick one, they'll pick someone who's been involved in a scandal, like they did do one on Tanya Harding.
Right. I think it's difficult to say they never do. I think they could do better. I think that's clear. And I think they should, because you're right. There are some great stories out there. There are stories that need to be told. We don't often hear about them. So one of the best aspects of the 30 for 30 series, as it comes to ESPN, is that it's long form journalism, which has been hit by a number of sources here in the past 3 decades or so. Long form journalism has kind of gone away, but what those 30 for 30 documentaries do is they bring in that art form of telling the whole story. Now, is it always going to be clean and neat and everything fit, all the bad guys are bad guys and all the good guys are good guys? No, that's what long form journalism does. Is it tells the story as it was. Now, sometimes that doesn't make things more clear, but I think there's value in that in the sports world. So when you think about stuff like that, you've got to have that. And I think that you're right. I think they could do better. I think they should be pushing more for that. They don't produce all of those. And so there might be a situation where there's just not very many in production. But that being said, it's just not good enough. Okay, so speaking of sports documentaries, I had one brought to my attention. It's a 30-minute short one about Murray State basketball. Little old Murray State basketball. And I have to say, aside from a couple people they had on camera, it was...
Well, they had a really good-looking guy at the very beginning.
Yeah. And then after Dave left, they brought on some other people. No, just a fantastically shot very well produced, high end documentary. Again, short. 30 minutes, and I think that the filmmaker.
But that's
even
an
said
ideal length, really.
That's the ideal length. But for us Racer fans, I know I'd like to have a 7-hour miniseries on the history of Murray State basketball. I would watch it and rewatch it. That's what I would do. But I'm a fan. That's how that works. But you were interviewed for that documentary, and I have to say, kudos to you. You did very, very well, and even better for the cinematographer to get your good side, which was difficult because I still haven't found it. So I mean, if we're talking about some good stuff, he did all right.
Yeah, Matt Hall was the director.
Yep.
He did the documentary for his thesis project, and I noticed the last time I looked at where he had posted it on Facebook, it had nearly 4,000 views.
Absolutely.
Which that's tremendous.
Absolutely.
And by the way, you can go to his page and you can download that video. I downloaded it to my computer.
Oh, that's awesome. So you can make your own DVD of that have a copy of it. What a fantastic...
You could do that.
And his name, say his name again so people know where to find him on Facebook.
Matt Hall.
And that's just Hall. Find him. It's a really great documentary if you get a chance to watch it. It reminds me in some ways, do you remember I believe it was a Northwestern Mutual sponsored video vignette about Murray State basketball.
Yes.
Again, not long, but
I think it was called The Home Team.
The Home
something
Team,
like
yeah.
that.
A fantastic. One of the things that we've been really blessed with at Murray State here in the past decade or so is we talk about long form journalism. Murray State basketball does not do well in short form journalism. It just doesn't, because you don't get to picture the whole thing. You put it into a long form package, and Murray State basketball becomes this, what we all know it to be, a rich tapestry of characters and moments and, great things that have happened.
Well, and one thing that a lot of people don't know is that the season after the magical year,
right,
the fellow who had directed the Home Team documentary came and he talked to me and some other people around town about the possibility of doing a weekly series during that season about the team.
Really?
Yes. Now, it turned out not to be the kind of year that everybody hoped and expected that it was going to be.
Right.
And they decided not to do it.
I think they missed an opportunity. For example, I don't know if you're aware of Last Chance U. Now, Last Chance U was a season-long documentary series that went to Scuba, Mississippi, to a junior college in Mississippi, and followed these players at this junior college. And it's not just the players, it's the administrators, it's the coaches, it's the fans, and they talked to all of them as they went through. And what struck me about Last Chance U, and it's still ongoing, and it's a fantastic series if you get a chance to watch it. What struck me about that series is it is as powerful when the subject is not successful as when they are successful. The power of that doesn't change with the success on the court or on the field. So I think that's a missed opportunity there. I mean, when you look at Last Chance U and you watch what those players, it's even mentioned now whenever those players go on and do other things, or you talk about those guys and you get backstories on these people that are either vilified in local press or have done some really dumb things, or have done some things that are hard to forgive. I mean, they call it Last Chance U for a reason. It's your last chance to get right. These are kids who didn't get grades or had off the field legal issues or something of that nature. And this is their chance. Now, some of them make it, some of them don't. But that's the reality of it. You know what I mean? That's the part. I think that's why that story needs to be told, is because it's real. It's not a fairy tale where good things happen. You know, you're just guaranteed everything's good's going to happen. And just a very powerful series. And I would love to see something similar at Murray State following year in and year out. I think that would be a wonderful thing.
Anything else on sports?
No, I think we're good.
That brings to a close this edition of the Improbability Engine.